You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I hope wherever you are in the world and whatever you're doing pretty bloody fantastically, awesomely well. The bloke you're about to hear from, his name is Milla, and he is the frontman for Sydney-based doomy sludgy monsters, Black Rheno. Let's hear from Milla. Here we go. Welcome to the show, Milla. According to Facebook, Black Rheno are an unstoppable band of brothers set on making a mark in the Australian scene. Here we go. Their hell-raising live show, commanding stage presence and bone-crushing anthems, that sounds painful, are kicking down doors for the band already in a big way, and nothing seems capable of stopping them. In other words, world, watch the fuck out, because here they come. So, Milla, tell us about the band, who's in it, and what you've been up to over the past 12 months.
I think we need to update that. That's a while ago, right?
It's a good one. I'll hand it to you. It's one of the best ones I've seen.
Oh, wonderful. That's nice. We've
got a good start. You're off to a good start. So tell us about the band. So I was short of a bio, to be honest. So normally I do a bit of background on the bio and see what other bands, the members of the band have been in, that sort of thing, and how you came together. So I'll hand it over to you in terms of telling us, a little bit about the band, just some background, who's in it, and what you've been up to over the past 12 months.
Yeah, okay, cool. Well, we've been around, we got together, I think it was late 2015, like at the end of 2015, so, and it's the three of us, Doug Martin on drums and Nanalistico de Plistico on guitar, as he likes to call himself, nice. But Mariano Palomares on guitar, and I met those guys. I've got a studio in Sydney, and they, Nano had just landed in the country, basically. He's Spanish. Mm-hmm. And he went over to, the local music store and was like, where do I jam? And they said, hey, go see Ryan, go see Milla. And he just, walked in the studio one day, you hear him playing riffs through the wall. Mm. And I was like, when he hired one of the rooms, and I was like, man, you got a band, what's going on? And he was jamming with another dude, and then I was like, do you need a singer? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, well, can I audition, Mm. And then sort of same thing. Dougie came in the studio one day. He just moved to Sydney as well from up the coast, and I'd finished. I didn't have a band going at the moment, and I was trying to get something happening, and I heard his drums, and he, I was just like, oh, this dude rips, and he's a cool guy. Yep. And then we sort of all just came together and then, formed a band. And now 2 and a bit years on, we're a band of brothers, united together as one.
Indeed you are.
Taking on the world. So what's the fuck out?
I do like it. You got to leave it up there. It's a very strong way of introducing the band.
Yeah, it's really funny.
But the other thing I liked about you guys, you've clearly got a sense of humour. So the video accompanying the track "No Time for Numbnuts," it's hilarious. Yep. Now it brought to mind something that Bob Daisley, the famous bass player for Ozzy Osbourne, he lives in Sydney actually. He's Australian. Oh, wow. He said to me years ago. Now this refers to the hippie in the V-dub van. Okay. Now, he said to me that he was playing a gig out of Sydney somewhere, and one of the local yokels said to him, oh, so you guys are from Sydney flying high again, or you guys are flying high again in Sydney town, or something like that. So very typical sort of comment made by a bloke similar to the guy that's in the combi in the video clip that you've got there. Yeah, he mentioned that, and he said it actually made the title of a famous Ozzy Osbourne song, which is Flying High Again. Now, of course, that has nothing to do with your video, but it just brought that whole scene to mind, like a band from Sydney on the road. And I know that the bloke in the video actually makes a comment about you guys from Sydney always break down here or something like that. So anyway, I've talked enough, but tell me about the video.
That was really fun. We shot that video down just outside of Melbourne. So we played Canberra the night before, and we had to meet Dan, the videographer, director guy. And also Youngie, the guy that plays the hippie, he plays in the band King Parrot. And,
that's Youngie, is it? I thought I recognised those teeth. Yeah, I've spoken to him a couple of times, yeah.
Yeah, he's a legend. And so we met those guys just outside of Melbourne, just on that dirt road there. And we literally slept for like an hour. By the time we got back from the the gig and packed up and then had to drive and meet those guys super early in the morning. So we went to like a backpackers and like just closed our eyes for an hour, woke up and off we went.
Mm.
And then we didn't really have any direction. We sort of had a rough idea, like, okay, cool. We just basically, we had a day, you know, we were playing that night in Melbourne as well. So it was like, meet as early as we possibly can during the day and just go and film a bunch of stuff and we'll just see what happens kind of thing. And yes, full credit to Dan from Farm Walker Productions. He's just one of those people that just comes up with ideas just, you know, on the spot, and they're just super funny and super, I don't know, just the way he interacts with you and just gets you to do stuff. He's amazing with it. And so he just rocked up with a bunch of props and things like that. And he's like, oh, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? And we just sort of put it together as we went, you know, sort of ad-libbed it all and all that kind of stuff. And then, just shot it during the day, and that was it. And then he hooked up a dude to do all the claymation stuff, which I think is awesome. I love that stuff. It sort of reminds me of all the early Primus video clips and things like that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And, and he basically just, you know, he directed it, man. You know, full credit to him on that side of things.
No, look, I get a lot of advanced copy, including videos and links to videos and the like, and my own thing is that I don't like it when bands release live videos. Okay, mainly, or you know, the sing-along videos. In some cases it works, but it's fairly boring, to be honest with you, because the band can usually.
Oh, you mean like the lyric videos?
Oh no, I don't even have a problem so much with them. It's mainly when you see like live action shots of the band playing live as the music video. I really appreciate it when a band actually goes to the effort of what you guys have done and actually do some sort of a concept. I think it gives you, it actually, as I say, because I receive so many videos and so much advanced copy, that's the sort of stuff that stands out. That's the sort of stuff that's very compelling, and it was actually a video that allowed me to make sense of your music. You know, not that it doesn't make sense listening to it without the video, but it was really cool to see what you guys had come up with to accompany the track, because it works so well.
Yeah. I mean, we got a lot of great response from that video. A lot of people really loved it, and I think you know, sort of won over fans and things like that with it as such. And yeah, I mean, I think having a really good video is just super important. Not only is it just really cool and really fun to make, you know, like, you know, doing it's just a whole lot of fun, and then you look back and you're like, oh, that's, you know, you're stoked on it, you know, all the effort and all the time you put into it. But I think it's also really important, like you say, to sort of stand out a little bit and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot of, I guess, just to add to the point I was making earlier, get a lot of copy from European bands. And, of course, most European bands play on the variety of festivals that are over there, and there's heaps. There's about 14 or 15 going at the moment. Top shelf festivals that most of the bands over there can play at any given time, of course, whenever they're on. And inevitably, a lot of the videos that come through are of them performing at Hellfest or whatever the Trollfest or whatever the name of the fest is that's going on over there, which looks really cool. But imagine how many advanced copies I might get, and how many times can you see a power metal band, for example, playing at Wacken? A video of that happening. It actually, you're becoming a bit numb to it. So when I get a video like yours, it does, to your point, it does stand out and makes me go, there's something else going on here.
Yeah, cool. That's good to know. Keep that in mind for the next one.
Keep it going, yeah. So tell us about the EP called Let's Start a Cult. Was it a labour of love, or were you just happy to see it released after many hours of blood, sweat and tears?
Well, I think, I mean, we wrote those songs pretty quickly, like within a matter of a few months, really. Like just over a couple of months, really, like 2 or 3 months. And we started gigging, like basically 2 months after we got together and first, you know, went, cool, this is a band. We started playing shows, and those songs were basically in there. And then, or maybe added a couple more, but about 6 months later we were like, okay, cool, let's record an EP. So it wasn't like we'd been sitting on them for ages or anything like that. They were still super fresh. It was still very early in the piece of us actually being a band. So it's not like we were like, you know, itching to get things out as such, as we've been sitting on it for a while, but it was just great to get something out and go, cool, this is our music, you know, let's get this ball rolling as such. And that was sort of, that was that. Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet. Okay. Now, sorry, I'm going to talk about the video again, but it's in reference to a T-shirt that you had on Snot. So are you a fan of the band? Because I remember them from years ago, and are they an influence over you in the music that you create?
More so myself than the guys in the band. They didn't really know much about them. But I'm a massive Snot fan, yeah, love them.
Lynn Strait, that was the singer, wasn't it?
Yeah, what a shame. He had that car crash. And
is that what it was? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, he had a car crash. It was I think they just finished recording like all the instruments for the second album, and then he had this car accident and he was gone.
No good, man. Like Chi Chang and Deftones, yeah.
Hey?
Like Chi Chang out of Deftones as well. I know he didn't go straight away, but yeah.
Yeah. So he that sucked. I mean that one album that they've got, Get Some. It's one of my all-time favourite albums. I love it.
Yeah, it was enough for the guitarist, I think, to audition successfully for Limp Bizkit. They had that one album back in the day, didn't they, where they had the guitarist from Snot. Not that I followed the band, but I remember that. Yeah, I think it had a pink cover, and it had when I say pink cover, the album sleeve was pink. I think, don't quote me on this, I'm not really a fan of the band, but I remember them doing that very, it became a hit, the cover of the Who song Behind Blue Eyes. I'm pretty sure that's the Snot guitarist playing on that track as well.
I don't know. That might have, the guitarist Wes Borland was probably the best part about that band. But
well, I think that's what happened when they lost Wes for a bit, and they. Yeah. Do you remember reading the media back in those days? This is like 15 years ago or so, maybe longer ago. But they held auditions where people could come along and they had to sign away the rights to whatever was recorded that they played for the audition. So just say they'd worked on a crash hot riff for the purposes of auditioning, using it as the audition to get into the band, potentially as a song that the band could release. The band apparently had rights to that.
What a bunch of knobs.
Oh,
that's terrible, eh?
Well, it was more surprising to me, mate. I'm going down to
You can audition for our band, bring in all the best riffs you've got, but once you've auditioned with us, we now legally own those riffs, and if we choose to use them in our new material, then you've got no right to it.
Something like that.
If that's how it went, what a bunch of wankers.
Yeah, that's right. That's probably the best way of framing it. If that's how it went, now I'm going on my 15-year-old memory.
If that's how it went,
If that's how it went, mate, and what's more surprising to me is that the band's popular enough to actually appear on download, because I don't know a single person that actually listens to them or even like them. I don't know a lot of people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it surprises me that they actually still have relevance. I just look at it as brocore, that whole brocore thing where dudes sort of not having respect for other people, get into the pit and they start slamming around and not in the artistic sense.
Yeah, I hate that stuff too. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Oh well.
But Snot was like a band that did, that new metal funk.
The funk thing I remember.
There was like this weird thing that they did. It was like new metal, but it was like new metal, but it was good. You know what I mean? And it had this sort of real funk sort of thing, and like just the guitars and the drums. It was super heavy, but not like heavy double kick heavy. Just super punchy, and just the vocals, man. He just had those vocals that were just raw, powerful,
they were,
and really made the music more heavy than what the music really was in a way as well.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. Yeah, it was a shame when he went. Yeah, I know he connected with a lot of people, didn't he? Because there was that tribute album that was released not long after he passed, and it had LeJon Witherspoon from Seven Dust and heaps of others on it. Yeah,
and that was the album that the band had recorded, but Lynn didn't get to actually do the vocals because he was gone. So then they went in the studio and got all the Seven Dust guy and a whole bunch of people to go and record. They had Corey from Slipknot and I can't remember the full list, but a whole bunch of people from that era and scene.
It was a ton of emerging artists, wasn't it? There was a whole heap that were on it, yeah. And I just remember that video, and back when, was it called Channel V back then? I'm pretty sure it was. The Foxtel program used to, that was our only source of music videos, really, back then. There was no YouTube in that era. So I remember watching it. It was on fairly high rotation for a track like that. I mean, I know it was a bit of it reminded me of an Incubus song, actually, something that Incubus would write. So it justifiably got quite the airing back then. So I think Snot, if it weren't not for that track, I don't think a lot of people would have actually known about the band.
Yeah, because they're not one of those bands that everybody knows. They, I guess for that same reason, is they only sort of they had that one album. So they sort of came and blew up a bit, and then just sort of, obviously off they went. So
yeah, indeed.
They were cool. They were very cool.
Let's take a right turn, okay? Now, I don't know what it is, and I'm seeking your sage advice on this, okay? I've interviewed, I'm up to about 250 bands or individuals and bands at this point in time. I reckon you're about the fourth person in the band from Sydney that I've interviewed. Okay, so granted, I get a lot of opportunities to interview. I spoke to Al Jorgensen yesterday and Ishan from Emperor this morning. So they're the sort of people typically that I would interview, and there's a whole bunch of Australian artists as well. Barely any come from Sydney, though. I interviewed Rowan from Jack's Band, which is an indie band based in Erskineville. I think they were really in the west somewhere. A few others, but bugger all, I've got to tell you, mate. And compared to what Melbourne does, Brisbane does, and Perth especially just seems to be producing a ton of wonderful music at this point in time. But look, what's your take on the scene in Sydney? And how do you find the support you receive that you are aware of that you get from local fans compared to fans from interstate when you travel to Brisbane or Melbourne, for example?
Yeah, it's better when we get out of town. I hate to say.
I thought so.
But it's the truth, It is better. We go to Melbourne, we go to Brisbane, and we get out of town, or wherever we get out of town. Generally, there's more support. It's different. I don't know, like Sydney, man. Sydney's awesome. I love Sydney. Obviously, I've grown up here and all that kind of stuff, so I'm biased. But it's not like a raging scene as such. But it's still got some good stuff there. Like, man, there's still people going to shows. It's just not as. I don't think it's as.
Is it because the cities?
The typical thing on Friday night, everybody just goes to that spot. It's a bit less like that, less than that. You really need to have the band that can pull heads.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. I was in a band in Sydney for a couple of years called Velveteen, and I definitely remember what it was like. We played Caringbah Bizzos and a few places around town like that. I mean, the Annandale, the Marquee. Yeah. We supported a few people when they were coming through town, and it just, I don't want to say had a hostile vibe because that's not really what it was about, but it just wasn't very friendly compared to what it is in Brisbane and Melbourne. I feel like when I'm having conversations with the bands from Melbourne, especially a lot of the metal bands from Melbourne, like the guys in Harlot, Desecrator, they're very keen to talk about the scene from which they come from. Perth, it's definitely like that. Everybody seems to know each other, and they're all very willing and able to sort of give each other a leg up. I wouldn't call it competitive, but I would never call it competitive, but I would call the scene in Sydney a little bit competitive because I know I experienced a little bit of that ourselves when we were down there.
Okay.
And I've had this conversation with Mike. What's his name? Carol from For All Eternity. They're a great band. He felt that they got quite a bit of support, but then they've blown up over in the States as well. So he might not notice it quite as much as a band like yourselves who actually do come from Sydney and do play in Sydney quite regularly. But yeah, it's just, and also too, mate, I've got to tell you, with my podcast series, I don't think I've got anybody that listens in Sydney. I don't know what it is. I've got an audience in Detroit, in North America, but none, 1,200 kilometres or however far away it is from where I'm sitting right now down the road. So I'm not bagging on Sydney, but it's just a bit of a funny place. I don't know whether it's because it's decentralised these days because there's 5.5 million people, almost 6 million people in the bloody city, if you can imagine that. Of course you can. You live there and you've got to deal with the traffic.
But that should be the opposite, reason. I mean, we all complain that sometimes, or at least some people in bands complain that the population in Australia is not huge, like Europe and the States and things like that, where there's just cities everywhere and people everywhere. So there's always, if you've got 5% of people in the population go to shows, let's say random number, if there's a few hundred million people, then that's a lot of people going to shows.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, like, I don't feel that competitiveness, like, as such, like, with bands in Sydney. I mean, all the bands we've played with and stuff, like, it's really, really cool. Everyone encourages each other and sticks to watch each other play and supports each other. I think that's great there. And I think it's there's nothing sort of bad about it in that sense to me. I think it's just not as part of the culture as like in Melbourne, where people just go, "What's happening?" What band's playing at the Toad on Saturday night? We're going, as opposed to. Do you know what I mean?
I think so.
They're going to the Toad. So if there's a band on, they're going to catch the band because they're going to the Toad because they just know there's a band on. Whereas here, it's like we'll go see the band because we know that our friends are playing.
Yeah, I get it. Whereabouts do you guys rehearse? What rehearsal studio?
I actually have one. I own one. So we do all recording and rehearsal in-house.
Okay, right. So that's not one that bands can hire out. So that's your own private space that you guys...
No, that's like a commercial facility.
Good on you, mate. Like you'd know, mate. You're very connected then.
Yeah. I love it. I live
it. What's the name of the rehearsal studio?
Everything. Hey?
What's the name of the rehearsal studio you've got down there?
Househawk Studios.
What suburb's that in?
It's in Brookvale, just north of the city.
Yeah, I remember rehearsing there once. I can't remember the name of the place, of course, but pointless me trying to remember it now after 20 years or whatever it's been. But that's fair enough, mate. Yeah,
been there for 5 years. A couple of days ago was the 5 year. 22nd was the 5 year mark of the anniversary of when I started building it.
Oh, good on you, mate. Yeah, okay. So you obviously get a lot of feedback from people coming through in terms of what they're doing. Do you get a lot of covers musicians? Because that's what I do these days. I play in covers bands, so of course there's plenty of work when you do that. But do you get a lot of duos and covers musicians and people who are what I classify as working musicians in the sense that they're playing 2 or 3 times a week?
They're paying to get played and they're going to get paid every show sort of thing.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
And not like worried about getting $1 per head or $3 per head or whatnot. I've got a few of those bands come through. Like, it's for the rehearsal side of the business. I get a lot of it's everything, man. It's really everything. You've got people coming in to practice drums by themselves, through to acoustic duos, even cover bands, metal bands, pop punk bands. Everything.
You name it,
really.
Everything that comes through.
Indie, reggae. it's a total mix. It's just everything: blues, rock, all sorts of stuff.
I'm never surprised at how much metal Brisbane and the Sunshine Coast and Gold Coast produces, because every time I go to a rehearsal studio, there seems to be, if there's 5 rooms, at least 3 of them are full of death metal bands or bands actually putting on some real technique, and they're playing well. Some of these guys can play as well as Chuck Schuldiner from Death, right? And I listen to them and I think, wow, okay, they are. And you never know who's going to come out these days. What I find interesting, and you probably know what I'm saying, it could be an 18-year-old, when I say kid coming out, an 18-year-old young man coming out of the room, or it could be a 55-year-old hoary old rock goat coming out. You never know, because all metal these days has just crossed over so many different boundaries, hasn't it?
Yeah. We used to have a band called Stories that used to jam at the studio, and they've split up now, but they're doing quite well. They were on the Unified sort of label, sort of more that sort of spectrum of the metal, and now just like 18, and just such proficient players, like just amazing, like really, really good players.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the world that we live in our sort of genre of metal, but man, they were good players, and it was always great when I'd have them in, because you hear them through the wall and be like, and these little dudes that just rock out and just be like, man, how have you mastered that already?
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that?
Do you ever get a musician coming through exactly like what you're saying about your mate who came from with a Spanish background that ended up joining your band? Do you ever see or hear a musician coming through and think, my God, he'd be great for what we do?
Well, not really. I mean, I kind of did that. I found those 2 dudes, and I was like, yoink. But
there you go. Yeah.
I'm pretty happy with those guys. We're all pretty happy together, and I think it's because we don't have a bass player. We've got it's literally just one guitarist, the drummer, and myself on the vocals. And we did audition a few bass players and things like that. We did think about getting other members in. And we just didn't find anyone right at the time, more so than anything. Now, it's not like someone couldn't do what we were doing or anything like that. Just we didn't really come across those right people, and then we ended up sort of setting it up the way that we have it now, where the guitarist runs, an octave pedal to a bass rig, and he has 2 guitar rigs and switches between things for different sections of the songs and stuff, so that we don't really need one.
Okay. Yeah, it's cheaper too in the long run, isn't it?
I don't know. I like how it is with the three of us. It's really good.
Oh, less people, less problems. There's no doubt about that in
Oh,
bands.
mate. Two other people to organise stuff with. Hey, guys, can you do it? Can you do it? Sweet, we're going, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I can
Makes
imagine.
it easy. I've been in bands before where there's a bunch of us, and, different work schedules and all this sort of stuff, and nothing gets done. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's very cool.
So talking about work schedule, what do you think the work schedule or the plan looks like for you guys? And I'm just picking a number here, next 5 years or so. Have you got Metallica and
Ooh.
Megadeth style world domination, or are you sort of doing something a bit more closer to home, where you're happy to fill a room with 90 to 100 paying punters that buy merch?
Let's take on the world, my friend.
Wonderful, glad to hear it.
100%. 100%. I mean, I don't think we're ever going to be no Metallica, but
Hey, Metallica aren't Metallica these days.
yeah, exactly. They got older, they changed. So that's cool. They're happy.
Yeah,
But
yeah, they wrote Master of Puppets. That's enough.
changes, man. If they're doing the exact same thing, everyone go, oh, it sounded like just. I mean, I don't know, whatever. But everyone's got their opinion on Metallica. But man, I think they're cool. I like them. I still like them. But
Did you like the last album?
yeah, we like to travel, man. Like, that's the idea. We want to get an album going after this tour. We'll start recording our first album. Work out how long that sort of, release it sort of towards the end of the year, mid year or something like that. I guess there's a few things to organise there, but and then once that's out, basically we want to, we're all saving, we're a little joint bank account we all chip into each week to fund all this stuff that we do, and that's the plan. We want to go to Europe. We want to go States. We want to be an internationally touring band. Like, that's what we want to be doing.
So I know you. I mean, obviously our connection comes through Dicey. So you've got pretty bloody good connections for an Australian band. But what's it going to take for you guys, do you think, to get on a tour with Electric Wizard or somebody like that and go through Europe or the States?
Yeah, I mean, it is. You need some good contacts, and we've sort of got some little conversations going on at the moment. They're just small ones, so there's not too much to talk about yet.
Yeah.
But if all things pan out with this album, right, they could work out well, and it's that juggling act. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, totally.
You don't know until things start happening, So, but there's a few different contacts that we've got, so we want to, let's get this album going, and then we want to basically shop that album, try and get international booking agents and record labels and things like that. We'd rather release it through a label and all that kind of stuff than just doing it ourselves for that exact reason. They've got the contacts, they can put you on tours and bills and festivals with killer bands, because they're the guys that put these things together and work with the people that put these things together. So that's the kind of goal for this year, is we want to establish ourselves with that kind of stuff, with booking agents in Europe and the States and things like that.
Yeah. So if, say, for example, Gloria Cavalera was to give you a call and say, right, guys, you've got a week to get over here and we need you for an 8-week trek because the band that we had have pulled out for God knows whatever reason. Is that something, if you're in a position now and were asked that, do you think you could accept an offer like that? Just as a hypothetical.
Right now?
Yeah.
No, we couldn't. I don't think we could. I think we need to get our money together first.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I mean, it's also one of those things where if that happens, then you're probably going to move heaven and earth to do it. Like, next thing you know, there's going to be bank loans and things like that. I mean, I personally took bank loan to go to South by Southwest when we did that last year, because I didn't have the cash to do it, because I just, I've been spending basically every cent I have on the studio and always investing in that, recording gear and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't come cheaply. And so, yeah, I mean, if something like that happened, I don't know, we're the kind of guys that would just make something happen. I don't know, we'd work it out. Like,
the amount of times I've heard that happening, I'm sure Richie won't mind me sharing this story, but he told me years ago, Richie Norton from Super High, DW, sorry.
No, yeah.
He told me that he was offered the bass slot on a tour in Soulfly, but he was given about, no, I don't want to misquote him here, I think he told me he was given about 24 or 48 hours notice, basically to learn the entire set. He's not the only person that's told me things like that have been offered. I'm not saying through the Gloria Cavalier or Max Cavalera, but through other people who've been like, here you go, here's the opportunity. If you want it, it's right now. It's a small window and it's going unless you give me a yes right now, that sort of thing. It's a shame, isn't it? But sometimes in the music business, that's generally not how it works, but it can work that way.
It totally can work that way. And if you want to do it, I mean, like that could be that opportunity that you take, and then, you know, you do it the last minute or whatnot. And then, you know, you go on that tour, and then after that, they're like, oh, you guys are great. We've got to have you back. Or, you know, you make that connection, and imagine saying no to something like that, you know?
It'd live with you. I think it would live with you. I think, you know, Richie's had his own success.
And then you never got asked again, and you never got asked again.
That's what happens. And I can tell you, I've been an account executive at Telstra for 11 years. I just got out of that last year, actually, and I remember some of the promotions that I went for in that role there. It works like that there too, insofar as, look, this is a job that's come up. We strongly suggest you apply for this role because you never know when another opportunity is going to come along. Now, I can tell you one of the jobs that I went for was quite a senior role, and I would classify myself as just ready for it when I accepted it. I knew I'd have a lot to learn, but yeah, I imagine that if I'd said no, I might have been overlooked for the next 2 or 3 applications that I put in. You know what I mean? So it works like that in the world in general sometimes, doesn't it? Sorry, the point I was going to make earlier.
It totally does, and that could be that little catalyst that just gets, you know, because, like, you know, being in a band and all that kind of stuff, as you're coming up from doing your first gigs to doing a bit of touring to doing all these different things, the more you do, the more people you meet. You know, the more shows you're playing in your hometown, you know, the more opportunities arise in your hometown. The more times you go to Melbourne, the more opportunities arise in Melbourne. So all that stuff, just because you're there more often, you're being seen by people, you've made that extra connections, you've been introduced to someone else or something like that. So all that stuff is just how that continually happens. I mean, you know, if you have some massive offer like that, you say no to it, then they might not ask you again because you didn't turn up that time.
And you guys are definitely good enough to accept, to basically, I mean, if someone gave you an opportunity, the music and the product that you've got, sorry for, you know, calling your music product, but you know what I'm saying, don't you, in terms of the way managers look at things and agents look at it. You're strong enough to tour the States. You've actually got a sound that I think, whether it be Gotor or King Parrot, mate, if you obviously you know Youngie, mate. So they're touring with, God, who are they touring with? Oh, no, it's Thy Art Is Murder that's touring with Dying Fetus, isn't it? Over there. I don't
think that's KP. They just did the Superjoint tour, though.
That's the one, yeah.
A couple of months back. So, I mean, they've toured with Soulfly and all sorts of stuff.
They're one. Look, I've got to hand it to them. I mean, they've done it on their own terms, mate. I mean, you obviously are familiar with the band, but what's your take on their success?
I think it's you know, they've got drive, man. They put work in. They work their butts off. They take massive risks. I mean, you know, like we're really good mates with Youngie and know the guys really well. And they just, man, they put their balls on the line. It's as simple as that. And then they're smart, you know, they do things the right way. And work ethic, you know, it just comes down to that. It's like your parents tell you, man, you work hard to do well.
Yeah, that's so true, isn't it? As long as you've got a vision.
So true. It's 100% true. You know, if you put the time into something, anyone can do. I'm 100% believer of this. Anyone can do anything. You know, if you want to do something, you can do it. It's the difference between people that do all the cool stuff and live out those cool dreams, or, you know, get those cool experiences. Obviously, there's some things like, especially when you're in a band, you know, making sure that you've got a band that all stay together and get along and all those kinds of things. But outside of that side of it, if you want to do something, all you've got to do is do it. If you don't know how to do it, research on how to do it. You know, and if you know, just doing some research online or something like that doesn't give you the answers, then find someone that has done it before and, you know, get some tips off them or do a course, or I don't know. But if you want to do something, you can do it. It's just a matter of putting the effort in. And most people don't put the effort in. And a lot of people go, oh, I wish I could do this. I wish I'd done that, or that sort of stuff. But, like, life's pretty black and white. Like, it's pretty simple when you get down to the nitty gritty of it. If you want to do something, just get off your ass and do it. And that's what they do, you know? They've just gone. We want to do this, and like, look what this grindcore band from Melbourne have done, man. They kill it. They're doing so well.
They're arguably Australia's premier rock and metal export in 2018, along with Die Artist Murder. I mean, I don't think I can name anybody bigger right now in terms of coverage. I don't know how many Facebook followers they got, but I tell you what, the majority of them would be from the States.
Yeah. I mean, they just work their butts off, man. They just do it, and I mean, and on top of that, first and foremost, they have one of the best live shows you'll come across. Like, man, they're entertaining as hell to watch. You can watch any single member of that band and be entertained for the set, let alone.
I've noticed that you bang on point with that comment you've just made. I watched one of their videos. I haven't seen them live yet, unfortunately, but I watched one of their live videos in the States, and it was an incredible performance. It was, that term incendiary gets used quite a bit, but that's what it was. I felt like I was watching G.G. Allen's Offspring.
Yeah.
Without all of the shit and piss and everything else.
Yeah, which is kind of cool because who wants to get shit thrown at them? I mean, let's be honest, right?
Have you seen that video? Have you seen?
I've seen the videos on YouTube, and they're like, "Man, why are you paying money to do that?" Like, I don't want someone to throw that to me. That's fucking gross.
You've seen the video where he's playing in New York, I think, and he does a shit, and the whole crowd just bolts for the exit, and there's one or two poor sacks that are sort of couldn't get out quick enough. I don't think. You can see the look of horror on their face about what he's going to do to them.
What a proper animal, eh?
The last real rock star, I reckon, in some respects. I mean, looking back, okay, he must have had some kind of, with all due respect to people who've got a mental disorder, but you know what I mean. He must have had something going on there because he was off with the fairies. He wasn't with us. He wasn't part of planet Earth even when he was living. There was something else going on there.
Yeah, he had hit the bottle and other things maybe a bit too hard or something,
Yeah, indeed. So, mate, tell me, challenges. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about Sydney, and we've talked a little bit about, and I really appreciate what you've shared there too, about what it takes to actually do it. You're a bloke that is in a position where you're seeing and you're having a conversation with musicians constantly because of your business. Okay, so you hear it all. I'd imagine you hear all of the reasons for success.
I hear everything, man. Everyone tells me where they're at, what they're doing. I hear some people I've had people come in and go, they're frustrated, like, why is nothing happening? Why is not there? And then I sit down with them, just I like to help out. And I feel like I've got a pretty decent knowledge on how to manage a band and all that kind of stuff. And I've been doing this shit for years and years. So it's definitely not my first rodeo or anything like that.
So you were talking about the various people that you meet, and the question that I was alluding to was if you could share some of the challenges that you've had in the band. I mean, or even a notable challenge that you've had that you've managed to overcome.
I mean, the challenges are when you're in the band, especially in the early days, is like booking tours and doing that for the very first times. When no one knows who you are and you don't have any reputation or any history really. So that's like when it's quite trying. It just takes a lot of hours of organising it, and also even just trying to find bands to play with out of town. Because once again, they're like, "Who are you? We don't know you," that kind of thing. So those things can be quite tricky at the start, and they just take lots and lots of your time on the email, back and forth, contacting people, and just organising that. That I think is sort of one of the harder parts, is just organising all the touring. I mean, as far as the other stuff, being in a band of getting together and writing songs and coming up with cool tunes and things like that, that's just all fun. That's just part and parcel of it, really, isn't it? That part of it there. And that's only a really small part of like if unless you're just jamming with your mates and play a few shows around your local town and just have fun and all that kind of stuff, which is also awesome as well. But if you actually want to be a touring band and out there doing stuff, actually writing music and jamming is like it's not even half of what you spend your time doing. It's what you want to be doing all the time, but the reality is the back end of the organising, man. You spend every day on the email, go back and forth, and it's non-stop. If you're a constantly active band, it's a non-stop thing. You just got to work your butt off. It's a second job,
Oh, totally. Yeah, I know, totally. Yeah. Passion only takes you so far, doesn't it? It's that commitment to hard work that'll take you all the way.
Yeah, I mean, you can be the most kick-ass band, have the coolest songs, and if you don't put any effort into breaking those barriers in sense of the touring and all those kinds of things, the only people are going to hear you are your 50 mates or 20 mates that rock up to your shows or whatnot. And, a few bands here or there. It's not going to, really go anywhere. You've got to do all those other little things, making contacts and I think like playing with as many different bands as possible. Don't get that right where I see bands that they're always playing with the same group of bands all the time or something like that.
I've seen that. Yeah,
the same venues. It's always sort of repeating every 6 months the same sort of thing.
Well, it can be isolating too from a punter's perspective if all of the bands are already mates together, which means that their extended other halves already know each other, and they're all basically the only people that are at a gig and they're drinking and having fun. You can feel like as though, hang on a sec, if I turned up to a party I wasn't invited to.
Yeah, and also for the punter, you're like, oh, I saw these three bands, 2 months ago, and now I'm seeing them again, and then for the third time, fourth time, it's like, oh, it's just the same lineup. Or it's just you playing the same venue a month later, and then the same, every couple of months, or it's the same thing all the time. It just, after a while, people go, oh, cool, we've done that a bunch of times now. We don't need to do it again.
Yeah.
It's kind of.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, right.
Stagnant.
Look, I've got an opportunity for one more question. Okay, so I do like asking Australian bands this one here. So I do host a not safe for work program. So I can be as vulgar as you so choose. Indeed, I encourage it, okay? But what's the most hilarious story you've got from touring or just being in the band in general?
Let me think. This is the most hilarious thing. I'm terrible at this. I've got the worst memories, like I said. Seriously, I've had too much party, we'll call it, over the years.
That's as good a description as any. Nice.
In my younger years, yeah. I'm getting old now. What's the funniest scenario? Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty innocent.
Ever had any? I was talking to Azabok about his experience with a girl that used to stalk him, and their latest video was actually modelled on that experience. So it's not autobiographical or biographical by any stretch, but it's modelled on his experience. So have you had anything like that, where you've had, a fan who's just a little bit too enthusiastic or keen?
I've had like, there was this one time, it wasn't in this band, but it was another band, and there was this girl like dancing on stage, like sometimes you'll get a girl dancing on stage and they just want to be the centre of attention kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm playing covers band, so yeah, I'm used to it, believe me.
Yeah, you've probably seen it. And just, man, she was just like spilling, drinks pretty much all over the pedal board and trying to flirt with the guitarist. And the poor boyfriend was standing right on the side of the stage trying to get her down. I've seen a couple of those sort of scenarios, which are pretty funny. But, I don't know. There was one night we played at the Tats up in Lismore there, and we got pretty sauced up after the show, and we didn't really want to go to bed. It's like the pub's closed, so what do we do? There was this like crappy nightclub down the road, like terrible DJ nightclub thing down the road.
Yep.
And but it was super fun, man. So we went to how do we get out of this place, because we don't have a key to get back into the pub. So we did this like little, like Mission Impossible stealth down the stairs, and there's this like security door. So like, how are we going to get this security door to stay open? It just automatically swings shut. We can't just put wedge something in the door, because it's going to be too obvious. People are going to see it. Someone might break in. We don't want anyone to actually break into the joint. And we had like a whole bunch of all of our gear was like upstairs, and we thought we locked it up, but we didn't lock it up. So we had like all this money up there from merch and things like that. All our heads and everything, like all the gear was like up in this room.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of shady characters I think that live upstairs and in that pub as well, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we're trying to work out how to do things. So like getting bits of cardboard, wedging it in the little latch there. We've got duct tape, and we perfectly fashioned this completely concealed latch restraint to stop us. We could still push the door open. We thought we were pretty smooth, you know. And then we looked up, and directly, like, Milla away pointing straight at us was the security camera. It's like, oh, well, there goes
our dastardly plan has been foiled.
Yeah, and I knew just like so hammered, man. At the time, I mean, it's not like it wasn't that crazy or anything, but at the time, we thought we were being like, intentionally like taking the mickey, like we were like spies or some shit.
Yeah.
And then we looked up, man, and we were just in hysterics, man. We were on the floor rolling around.
Oh, that's cool.
That was pretty fun. It was innocent, but it was fun. There was probably a bunch of other stupid shit we've done.
But that one that you talked about where the fan got up on stage, or the gig attendee got up on stage there, we put a stop to that about 5 years ago or so. Because we had trouble getting this Hens Night group off the stage one night. They would not get off. And you've got to be very careful how you delicate is the word to describe how you approach these things.
Yeah.
Because we wanted them to stick around and keep having fun and all the rest of it. We didn't want to draw attention to them, but we were playing in front of about 80 people that night. But yeah, they got quite aggressive with us, actually, I think, and stuff. Because they were lubed up themselves, these girls, so they were juiced up, meaning that they were drinking.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter, who you are. A drunk person, like, in the zone sometimes, and you can be like, hey, back up a little bit off gear or something, just drunk people in general, light up, go off it.
Yeah.
You're going to laugh about it, though.
I know. Well, that's it.
Well, we encourage that in this band. That's a beautiful thing, man. People storm us off. So, actually, it's a funny story. So when we played Dead of Winter Festival last year, middle of the year there. That was awesome. That festival's great. Caroline that runs that kills it. It's just a killer festival. It's really, really cool. And so we were playing like the after party at the zoo later that night. So we were at like 2 a.m. And we played that afternoon at the festival. I think it was like 6:40, 6:30 or something like that. So there was a lot of beers drunk between
then and 2
the time we
a.m.
got there for being, we had a few beers before playing. We don't get too pissed before we play. We had a couple of beers.
Yeah.
And but then afterwards, man, we hit it. And, we're hanging out with Black Swamp and Autopsy and a bunch of really cool bands and, like, Red B and stuff. We're all good friends with those guys. So it was just like, there was like 25 different 30 or so band members that were all mates with, and just like catch-ups, It was just this party. It was great.
Yep.
So then they all came with us to hang out when we played at the zoo. And just before we went on, Jake, the drummer from Autopsy, comes up and he's like, man, there's an ironing board and an iron backstage. Do you mind if I just present that to you at some point during the set? And I'm like, sure, why not? Sounds like a fun idea. So he brings out this ironing board, and there's like this intro to one of our songs, which is quite a slow sort of intro that slowly builds up. And he brings out the ironing board and sits it and like sort of presents it for me, and I take my shirt off and start ironing it, just being silly as do-do-do-do, sort of going on in the background there.
Yep.
And then I'm like yelling at everyone, like telling everyone to give me their clothes to iron, and then people are throwing me their jackets and I'm pretending to iron it and whatnot. It's just like, what's going on?
Have you got a video of this?
And then the song like kicks into the real heavy, brum, 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 brum sort of section. And then I'm just like, I've got an iron in my hand, holding it by the lead, and I'm swinging it around and around in circles. Like, if I let go of that thing, there's a freaking iron flying across the room into my head or someone else's in the crap. Like, it was stupid as hell, right? It wasn't smart. And proceeded to bash the ironing board. Bash the ironing board to the ground, and then just swinging this fucking thing around my head. And the next thing you know, I think then Jake just started like pulling all the drums off the stage. They just started pulling, all the guys just came out. They started pulling like cymbals off, and just, I don't know, it was just like...
Just bedlam.
It was Yeah, it was just a mess. It was a proper mess, but in a really good way, man. Everyone was just laughing and having a really good time.
Oh, wicked! Yeah,
it was pretty funny.
Well, there you go.
That was pretty good.
Do you reckon there's a video out there somewhere of it? Someone with a phone, video on their phone?
Yeah,
or something
we had because we did one of those video clips like we were talking about before, where it's all live shot. So we actually have a video clip like that, which we shot at Dead of Winter Festival, right. And then we got a couple of shots of that gig later on in the evening. So there's a bit of footage floating around the tour.
Nice.
The little promo clip's got a bit of it in it, where I'm sort of got an iron down my pants and jiggling it around.
I'll have to watch that actually.
I'm just being an idiot, man. We're sort of pretty loose on stage, so it's pretty funny.
Good stuff. All right, so mate, we've come to the end. So if you want to tell the listener how they can get in touch with you, so obviously you've got Facebook, but mate, your music, is that available on Apple Music and Spotify?
Yeah, it's available on all the downloading sites, Bandcamp and iTunes, and we're on Spotify and all that kind of stuff. They can find us at the best way to keep up with things is Facebook. Everyone's on there, and obviously we've got this tour coming around, Australia over March. So we'll be 2nd of March from the Gold Coast.
Saw that. You're down at Burleigh, aren't you? On the Gold Coast.
Yeah, you're at Burleigh. Yeah,
yep.
Yeah, Mo's Desert Clubhouse. I've been there before. It sounds really cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty good place actually.
Accommodation, which is lovely,
Yeah, I think they've only just started doing things not too long ago actually, but it's in a semi-industrial area there at Burleigh. There's a small one there. So you've got a lot of rock climbing places around you. And plus, mate, you're only a stone's throw away from Burleigh Beach, mate, which is one of the best beaches, I think, in Australia.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I've surfed there a couple of times.
Yeah, you guys will love it there, yeah. Are you playing the sunny coast?
No, we're not going any further than Brisbane, unfortunately. We still haven't gone past Brisbane, so that's going to have to happen on the album launch. That'll be a huge tour, that one.
Play Soul Bar at Maroochydore if you can, mate. Yeah, Darksil and a few other bands. King Parrot, I think, are playing there in the next couple of days or weeks.
I saw that Darksil. They put a little bit of footage up the other day. It looked really, really cool. So.
Yeah, I didn't get to go. Yeah, I wish I'd gone to that one actually. There, I know the bloke who helps manage them, David Dean, quite well. Just to support him and the band as well. That's a good venue. That one there at Maroochydore on Ocean Street, mate. I think you guys would go down quite well, particularly given that they're already playing KP. Yeah, well, I mean, if they're playing KP and Dark Cell, they're obviously putting on some heavy bands, so we might as well go join in, I say. Indeed. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith and I host this here podcast called Scars and Guitars, and that was my conversation with the bloke called Milla, the frontman of Sydney-based doom and sludge monsters, Black Rheno.